came across an incredibly creepy family a while back by Practical Sync 1484. In around 2018 or 2019, I was 18 or 19 and living in Nebraska, where I grew up. I lived in the largest city in Nebraska, but it was still essentially surrounded by corn and wheat fields. The city was expanding, so rich folks had started building huge houses with giant properties on the edge of town as things continued to grow. All that being said, I had a good friend whose parents' house was one of those big ones, right on the blurring line between the fields and the city. My friends and I were constantly hanging out at his place because it was fun. They had tons of property to ride 4x4s on, a hot tub, a huge living room for us to watch sports and have reality TV binge sessions, etc. Plus, his parents were super cool, and we could drink out there as long as we stayed at the house. It was tons of fun, even though I was, and still am, quite scared of the dark. So I just wouldn't go outside after a certain time. There was little lighting, and the nearest neighbor was about a mile away. I always felt a weird energy driving to and from his place, if it was late at night. But nothing ever happened, until one night. The drive out there was a long, winding, two-way road, lined with thick trees on both sides, and you passed one of the city's largest cemeteries along the way. Barely any lighting, of course, just the occasional street lamp, and very little traffic. It's all inherently a bit creepy, and I'll admit to speeding through that section of road many times just to get through it as fast as possible. This specific night had perfect spring weather, so I was driving with my windows down, listening to music. It was around 10 p.m. I was coming around one of the curves in the road when I had to essentially slam on my brakes. Right in front of me, in the middle of the road, maybe 50 yards away, was what looked like a family. Again, picture a completely pitch black road, thick forest on both sides, and only my headlights illuminating what's ahead. There was a family of 3 or 4, a tall, slim woman, an average height, average build man, a child, short hair, but I couldn't tell the gender based on clothing or see their face, who looked to be around 8 years old, and the woman was pushing a fucking stroller. Their clothes looked normal, not tattered, but not nice either. And they weren't carrying any kind of light source, meaning that before I came up behind them, they had been walking in complete darkness. They were all facing away from me, walking in the middle of the street in the same direction I was heading. I turned my music down to see if they were talking, playing music, anything. They weren't. The hairs on my arms immediately stood up. I came to a stop behind them and just sat there for a moment, waiting for them to move. They seemed completely unaffected by me. Didn't turn their heads, didn't move out of the way. I literally thought I was going insane, or that I was dreaming. It was so surreal. Before I really had time to process what I was seeing or how truly strange it was, they all at the same time stopped walking and very slowly turned to face my car. That scared the absolute shit out of me. I honestly didn't even give myself time to look at their faces as they turned. I immediately threw my car in reverse and sent it backward for probably a full 20 seconds before flipping a U-turn, nearly running myself off the road and booking it the other direction. The only thing I remember clearly is that the stroller looked completely empty. That's the part that sticks in my mind the most. I've never felt terror like that in my life. I checked my rear view mirror probably 1,000 times before reaching a main road and never saw a glimpse of them again. In fact, I never saw them again, period. I tried asking my friend and his family about it, only to basically be looked at like I was insane. Every time I tell this story, I get one of 3 reactions. People either think I'm fucking cuckoo, think I'm lying, or they've had something sort of similar happen to them. I really don't care if no one believes me, honestly. It was, and still is, the creepiest thing that's ever happened to me. I think about it all the time. It was either some weird-ass family trying to scare the shit out of someone, a distraction for an attempted robbery or assault, or it was something more sinister. I'm going to tell myself for probably the rest of my life that it was the first option. Not my mother. This story happened about 11 years ago. I was a senior in high school at the time, and to this day, it's the single most mind-boggling thing I've ever experienced. It's also important to note that it happened in mid-December. I'm from Iowa, and the winters here get cold at night. Like, if you get stuck outside, you'll die kinda cold. That, plus the snowfall, makes everything dead silent. You can hear anything and everything inside the house, and even just outside of it. My best friend and I were hanging out in my family's walkout basement, just having a boring winter night, playing video games. We were also the only ones home. The reason it was just us is because my mother had gone straight from work to a bar to grab a few drinks with coworkers. So, my friend and I thought it'd be a good idea to break into the family wine and live a little. As we were opening the first bottle, I heard the door to the garage open and slam shut. I immediately thought, oh shit, and started looking for a place to hide the bottle. My friend said, I thought you said your mom was supposed to be out all night. She was, I replied. Then I heard a few heavy stomps, and my mom called out, anyone home? I yelled back up the stairs, yup, just hanging out in the basement. I heard a few more steps move from the garage door toward the stairs, and she yelled again, can you come help me with something? I need you up here. I replied, still frantically trying to find a good hiding place for the wine bottle. Yup, give me just a minute. Then there was silence for about 20 seconds. Anyone down there with you? She yelled again, but this time in a more serious, concerned tone and in a voice that was slightly off. It sounded like my mom, but there was something missing. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was just wrong. That was the first thing that told me something wasn't right. Our family never cared if someone was over. Our house was very open to all family and friends. And that voice, it just wasn't quite hers. Weirded out, I replied, just Colton. After that, I found a decent place to hide the wine bottle and began walking up the stairs. As I climbed, I couldn't help but feel the overbearing silence in the house and this weird, electric twinge that something wasn't right. When I reached the top of the stairs, I looked over toward the garage door and the kitchen next to it. It was black, pitch black. All the lights were off and there was no moonlight coming in through the windows. I stepped into the kitchen calling out, Mom? Where are you? No reply, just silence and darkness. That electric twinge turned to full-on needles. My adrenaline kicked in hard. I had to get out of there. My mom wasn't home. I ran back down the stairs, grabbing my coat along the way. What's wrong? Colton asked. My mom's not home, I said quickly, looking around for my truck keys. What do you mean? You were just talking to her? I could see the confusion in his face. There's no one home. We need to leave. Now. I took a few steps toward the back door that opened into the yard. And that's when I saw my dog, shaking on the couch, and my cat growling behind it. I couldn't leave them. I knew that if we left, something would happen. Are we leaving? Colton asked, still confused as hell. Number, I can't leave them here alone. Something is really off. I'm going to call my mom and figure this out. I pulled out my phone and called her. She picked up immediately. What's going on? She asked. "Mom, were you just home? I heard you yelling for me from the second level, and when I went up, you weren't there." I was speaking frantically, hoping, praying that she was playing a joke. "No, I'm just leaving the bar. I wasn't feeling well. Are you okay?" "What do you mean you heard me?" I filled her in on the whole story. She rushed home. Colton and I stayed in the basement with the animals until she got there. But before she arrived, you could feel something upstairs. Not footsteps or noises exactly, but a pressure in the air, like a black hole was slowly moving from one room to the next. The word I'd instinctively used to describe it is hungry. When my mom finally got home, it was like whatever it was left just vanished. The overbearing predatory presence disappeared, like it had flown away. We still have no idea what the hell that was, and this is just one of many unexplainable things that have happened to us. But it's the easiest to write down, and one I was lucky to have a witness for. My mother has passed away now, and I've moved to Arizona. But whenever I go back to Iowa and see Colton, he still gets creeped out by what happened. I may never truly know what it was, but I do know that whatever had my mother's voice, it was evil, and it was hungry. Help me, I'm lost. I was living in a rural area in Oklahoma with my mother at a small lake house. I was probably 10 or 11 at the time. One night I was asleep in my room when I suddenly and abruptly woke up for no reason. This wasn't normal for me, and I immediately felt uneasy. The only sound I could hear was my mother snoring in the next room on the couch. I rolled over and tried to go back to sleep, but the need to use the bathroom was getting harder to ignore. Grudgingly, I forced myself to get up and head that way. The bathroom was on the other side of the house, around a corner, past the kitchen, and finally down a long hallway on the right. I made the trip, finished my business, flipped off the light switch, and started heading back to bed. That's when I heard the click of the light switch again, and saw the glow of the bathroom light flick back on in the hallway. Terrified, I slowly turned around just in time to see the bathroom light start clicking on and off. Click, 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 click. Finally, it shut off completely. In the dark of the hallway, my eyes started adjusting, and I could make out a white shape near the end of the hall. It was about my size and crouched low to the floor. I froze. My mind started racing, trying to process what I was seeing, reminding myself that no one else was home except for my mom and me. Then the white shape began to whisper in a quiet, low man's voice, "Help me. I'm lost." I wanted to scream for my mom, but I couldn't. Instead, I barely managed to whisper, "No." And that's when it started running at me on what sounded like all fours. I bolted. I ran through the kitchen, around the corner, and into the room where my mom was sleeping. I shook her awake, panicked and yelling, "It's coming! It's coming!" I saw her eyes go from dazed to alert in an instant. She looked at me, then past me, over my shoulder, and screamed. Remembering that scream still makes my blood run cold. I've never heard pure terror like that in my life, not before and not since. She grabbed me by the arms, pulled me into my room, and slammed the door shut behind us. Then she held me in her arms, her back pressed against the door, and we listened. It sounded like something was running around in circles in the kitchen, fast. We could hear hands and feet slapping against the tile. The kitchen had a sliding glass door to the outside, and we heard it suddenly thrown open, then slammed shut. We stayed like that, terrified and frozen, until daybreak, After that night, I was sent to my grandmother's in the next town for a while. I never set foot in that house again. Years later, my mother told me that she had gone walking around the property after the incident and came across a small burial site with 3 headstones. Each one belonged to a child who had died in the early 1900s. It freaks me out because what I heard that night was a man's voice, but it was unnatural, too low, too wrong. My mom still refuses to tell me what she saw behind me that night, what it was that made her scream. She says she's afraid that if she talks about it, it will know we're talking about it, and it will come back. This was the first of many strange and unexplainable things that have happened in my life. Retired Paramedic Story Time by SniffinLippy. Retired paramedic here. Had a call on a very desolate stretch of road for a car sitting in the middle of the road, covered in blood. Of course, it has to happen at 2 a.m., just like every horror story. We arrive on scene and find a new Camaro sitting in the middle of the road that had obviously been in an accident. Problem is, there is absolutely nothing else around the car. No persons, no other vehicles, nothing. Part of my job then was as a tactical paramedic for our sheriff's department. Sounds all exciting and high-speed, low-drag. Nope, not as a medic. I got paid to wait for stuff to happen and sit in the rear with the gear. That being said, my paramedic partner and I both had pistols in the ambulance. As we start approaching the Camaro, my partner is shining a light around when he says, really low, hushed and rushed, "Back, back, 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 now, now, now," he says. I shined my light in the car and there are intestines wrapped around the gear shifter and a lung in the back seat. So, we kind of freak out, call dispatch, let them know what's happening, and we are in the process of getting out of there till the cops show up when we see a figure appear, walking down the road toward us. As he gets closer, we see he is covered in blood and gore. We both throw on our tactical vests, helmets, snatch our pistols as I sound like a frightened, home alone 9-year-old on the radio to dispatch. We approach and start screaming at him to get on the ground, which he does. After everyone's heart rate is below 200 beats per minute, we start talking and figure out what happened. This guy had purchased a brand new Camaro and drove it to this desolate stretch of road to open it up. He said 1 minute he is shifting gears, and the next thing he knows, his car is all over the road, his mouth was full of blood, and it seemed like an explosion had gone off. I start looking his injuries over and can't really see anything major and ask him about the passenger in his car. He says, "What passenger?" My partner says, "There's a lung in your back seat." Dude goes straight into mental overload and can't come up with anything, so I'm thinking he's hurt. Get him in the ambulance, police are 5 minutes away. We potentially have another victim out there. I have to go look, by myself. I walk through the crash scene, look in the car, and sure enough, intestines wrapped around the gear shifter, lung in the back seat, looks like parts of a liver, looks like a hand grenade went off inside the car. I walk around the other side of the car and see a faint blood smear stain on the road. Walk to it, see something else further down the road, so I keep walking toward it. I finally see something on the side of the road and run up to it. Honestly, completely freaked out and scared to death about the body I was about to see. And the dude had hit a deer. What happened is, when he was winding the car out, state police estimated him well over 100 miles per hour. A deer jumped into his car's pathway and hit the top corner of the windshield with its stomach. When the windshield crashed, it created a negative vacuum in the car, sucking almost all of the deer's organs out and into his car and all over him. I had the fire department decontaminate him, wrapped him in some blankets, and took him to the hospital. For many, many years after, my wonderful 911 dispatchers happily played the recording for anyone who wished to hear it.